Good morning, my Teaserking family. How's everybody today? I have a 30 unit lock I found, and I have another lock. I love this lock. This is a great lock. I stumbled on it and just where is it? Yeah, love this lock. It was kind of a mistake. I was looking at a game and I realized something, and then I said, this is perfect. So anyway, that's what I played. So it's a big 30 unit lock. I got another 21 unit lock in the pros. And I'll probably have one more lock. I'm waiting on quarterbacks in college. My college picks are pretty much in. I found a few more picks that and then I looked at the 5-6 week history, and that's really the key. So what's happening is I'm stumbling on looking at the teams, and then I'm looking at, like in college, mostly I look at the last 5 or 6 games and I go, oh, wait a minute, this isn't the same as the other, because it has that first couple of weeks where the first week, depending on who they play, if it's a bad team, they play a really good team. And then the high school game or the Z team game. And so they win 70-0. Well, that skews my stats because I only have 9 weeks of college. Well, we're in week 12, so I have maybe 10, 11 weeks of college. Well, usually they have buys, and then one of them being the high school game. So that's what skews up your first 2 weeks. If you either play a high school team the first week or you play the regular game and then you play the high school team the second week. Either way, the first 5 weeks you're skewed because you got those 2 games in there. Especially for the big games. USC plays a high school team and then a Z team or Akron or something, and they look better than they are. Now we catch it because we can see the Big Ten and the SEC every week, so we don't really need to go back. We can see. We don't look at their numbers as much, but it's the other games. It's the Sun Belt and the Conference USA and the Mountain West that really are battered, that I'm finding gems all over, like Coastal Carolina last week. I locked it and it won by one easy. I'm laying one. They won by 13. But that's a Conference USA or a Sun Belt team. But if I looked at the total stats, they didn't pop out because they got killed one week, and they didn't. So looking at the last 5 weeks, and they had scored 40, 40, 40, 40 playing a Z team. Yeah. So that's my point. By looking at the last 5, if they switch quarterbacks and now he's doing well or whatever, usually I catch that because I know the score I'm expecting. Right? They're a Z team. They're a W team. They're not going to score a lot. They put up 50 points. All right, I'm going to check the box score, and I'm going to see, oh, they switch quarterbacks. Oh, it's Cam Rising. And that's how I catch those things. So a lot of picks this week. I'm waiting on 2 quarterbacks. I thought the old Mississippi State quarterback, Shapen, was playing, and now he's still questionable, or it was just an old one. I'll double check that today. But I've got one. There's one game I want to lock, but I need the quarterback. It's not old Mississippi State. It's another game. And a lot of good plays. Old Dominion won 33-0 over Troy. I didn't play it. Today we got Louisville 3.5, 51.5, and Oregon 25, 44.5. I don't know. Oregon, they did win at Iowa. So we'll see. The Iowa USC games got me a little confused. Iowa played Indiana 1915, and they just played Oregon. You're wondering, well, do I take home? Because they are a good, they beat Michigan at home, which is similar to Iowa, good defense, good running, no quarterback. Or do I play the game under? No thought of playing Iowa, not on the road, not traveling. And this is the problem with the Big Ten, all these cross-country flights. So you got to be careful of that. One thing I'm noticing, let's just switch to gold for a minute. Gold's sitting at 40.73, but look at this 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, it dropped at 8 o'clock. We're sitting there at 41.40, and all of a sudden it goes down to 40.40. It goes down $100 at basically 8 o'clock. What the fuck's going on? Now, we know that's not real. But then look what's happening. It doesn't shoot back up at 10 o'clock, and then it goes up at 10 a little bit, and then we're going sideways. So I don't know what's happening. Same with silver. Why is it down $2? There's no reason. The only reason I saw, and I'm going to quickly do this, and we're going to get into football, is this explanation. Gold falls as bets on Fed cut waiver with data gap clouding view. So they're saying gold falls because they're not going to cut the interest rates. Gold dropped as optimism that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates next month was shook by ongoing uncertainties over economic data following the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. So apparently the government is back to work today. So the shutdown ended, and now they're not going to cut interest rates. What does that have to do with gold? Absolutely nothing. But the speculators are somehow fixing the interest rates with the gold price. So they're shorting the gold. Now, these are speculators, so I don't know who the hell they are if they're not the bullion banks and JP Morgan. Expectations for Fed cuts were scaled back as the week progressed, with Fed officials showing little conviction for reducing borrowing costs. Higher interest rates typically make non-yielding bullion relatively less appealing to investors. We're not in it for fucking dividends. What is wrong with these people? We're in it because you printed the money to zero, and that's not stopping. And you going back and printing more money to zero is not going to stop it. So because the Fed cuts, they went back to work and they're not going to cut interest rates, gold goes down, silver goes down. Really? And how does one thing have anything to do with the other? It doesn't. That's what's amazing to me. Traders now are split on the likelihood of a rate cut in December. After all but pricing in a quarter-point reduction less than a month ago. Attention now turns to comments from 3 Fed officials due to speak Friday, including voting member Jeffrey Schmidt. Some Fed officials have already signaled that they would feel uncomfortable about further interest rate cuts without reliable data on the labor market, inflation. Well, the inflation number is bullshit anyway. Though Langen, head of the currency and commodities research at Commerzbank AG, which I think is Germany, wrote in a note Friday, there is therefore a risk that a majority will decide against an interest rate move in December for the time being until the picture becomes clearer again. Gold's elevated correlation to risk assets recently suggested an unwind of the debasement trade is commencing into year end. Well, what's debasement? We're not taking the gold out of the currency. I think they don't want to call printing the money inflation, so they come up with this debasement term, not to expose that what they call inflation is not inflation. According to TD Securities, that's Channel Dominion, treasuries are outperforming gold as a safe haven during the bout of risk off. What? Treasuries are outperforming gold? In what world is this guy living? Dan Galley, senior commodity strategist, said in a note, Guy's out of his fucking mind. Gold's way up. The precious metal experienced elevated volatility this week, which may have been amplified by a so-called gamma squeeze, a technical pattern whereby dealers who sold cheap options are forced to buy bullion futures as a hedge. In a thin market, any sudden rise in price can increase the urgency to buy and snowball into a surge even without fresh demand from physical buyers. Oh, yeah, there's no demand in physical buyers. Yeah. Gold's rebound this week fits the dynamic, according to Gully. He noted that a recent drop in the over-the-counter trading volumes made the market easier to push around. This liquidity vacuum may actually have been key for setting up a gamma squeeze. I love how they name this shit, resulting in a second shock wave higher this week, he said. Bullion is still up about 55% this year and remains on target for its best since 1979. Central banks have stepped up purchases seeking a store of value and asset diversification, while investors have piled into the metal as a hedge against growing physical unease in some of the world's biggest economies, or basically inflation. What a bunch of idiots. So why are they trying to tell you to look at the Fed rates? The Fed rates has nothing to do with this. Gold studies as traders weigh comments from Federal Reserve officials, as well as data showing a dramatic weakening in the U.S. jobs market. Again, who cares? That's got nothing to do with gold. Raising this prospect of lower interest rates. Bullion was little changed, just below 4,000 an ounce. Paper gold, they don't say that. Pairing gains made earlier in the session. Markets were buffeted early Thursday by a report that showed U.S. companies had announced the most job cuts for any October in more than 2 decades, according to data from outplacement firm. The dollar weakened. So, anybody explain what the fuck I just read has anything to do with the gold price? The gold price has one thing. You've printed the dollar to nothing. Okay? You've printed the dollar, it has no value, which is very real, which is inflation. Tell me what that has to do with the Fed cutting rates. Once the money's printed, the money's printed. Inflation's here. We're in massive inflation. The dollar has no value. What's that got to do with interest rates? I just marvel at the excuses they use, and nobody can challenge them because nobody understands what the fuck they're saying except for somebody like me. It has nothing to do with it. If they raise or lower interest rates at this point, you've printed so much money, it has no value. You are going into gold to get off the Titanic and get into a safe haven, because gold is the safe haven, as is silver. What the heck does that have to do with the Fed cuts interest rate? So I'm wondering, why is gold getting hit today? Just from a superficial point. I know it's bullshit. I know they're shorting it. I don't know why. I don't know how these buys, these little speculators, have any impact on our gold and silver. I don't really get that. Anyway, I thought I'd read that to you. I'll show you Mark McGuire later. But that's their excuse, is the Fed won't cut interest rates, therefore the gold price went down because it's a hedge against it. So I fail to understand that. All right. So let's look at, we'll do college football. Yesterday, New England beats the Jets 27-14. So basically, if you played a teaser in the game, you won, because it was 13, was the point spread. What did I tell you? You can win, but you can't win by more than 13. And they won by 13. The spread at the end went down to 12.5. So anyway, so I don't know. I haven't seen the game. I'll watch it a little later. I don't really care. Ironically, the Jets have a 27 defense. They gave up 27, and New England's got a 19 defense, gave up 14. It was what I thought would happen, but I didn't like the spread of 13. I don't like laying 13. I have found I got 2 games locked. Well, I got 3 games locked in the pros. Very good locks. 2 I thought. The third one fell in my lap. I was talking to a buddy, and we looked at certain games. I said, what's the over-under on a game? And it was much higher than I thought it was. I said, well, that's ridiculous. They'll never get to that many points. So that was the third lock. And in college, again, I have locks. Let's look at college, and then I'll just run through the teaser points in that. Now, again, in college, I'm doing a lot more, like take UCF, Texas Tech. What I'm doing here, I have the yearly stats, which would mean UCF's an 18 with the 19 defense, and Texas Tech's an 18 with the 12. But when I go into the last 5, so one thing I see is Texas Tech scores 42 a game and UCF 27. But then I look at the defense, and Texas Tech gives up 12 and they give up 20. But are those the real numbers? So when I look at UCF, the last 5 games, they give up 27, 20, all right, a 13 to West Virginia, and then a 30 to Baylor and a 30 to Houston. So they're giving up damn near, I got 26 points a game they're giving up. But when I look at Texas Tech, yeah, that 12's pretty good. 17, all right, a 26, a 0 to Oak State, a 7 to BYU is a good team, and a 20. So when I add all that up, I got 3 games under 20. So I have about a 12 or a 13. So the Texas Tech is correct. But if you look at their offense, they fucking scored 29 on BYU, who's got a good defense, a 43, a 42, and a 42. Kansas and Kansas State aren't bad. Arizona State, they didn't have the quarterback, as we know. He didn't play, the backup played. And as a matter of fact, the backup played, and they beat Oak State 42-0. But with the quarterback, 42, 43, 29. So they're really scoring a shitload of points. They're scoring near 40, but they give up about 12, 13. Hey, David. TK, are the Patriots for real? You think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They don't have the quarterback for that. You think they can beat Kansas City? So I don't buy they're for real. They played a weak schedule. Again, you're looking, what did they beat? The Jets, right? You know, the Jets aren't a real good team. We give them credit for winning at Buffalo. And we'll give them credit for winning at Tampa. So we give them credit for both. Pretty solid defense. New England's a B team with a 19 defense. So they have the defense. Can they beat Denver? Can they beat KC? They have beat Buffalo. They got to play them again. Anybody can beat Baltimore in the playoff. They'll beat Baltimore if they play them in the playoffs, if Baltimore makes the playoffs. You know, what I find most of the time, you have to go and lose to go and win. I mean, look at the Lions, made the championship game. Then they didn't even get out of the first round last year. You don't just go and win. If anybody was going to win, is Detroit for real was last year, 15-2. They killed Minnesota in the 1 seed. They go up against Washington and golf chokes. And that's the question, is Drake May a choke? I've never known Drake May to be a very good quarterback. He likes to run too much. He can get injured very easily with the running quarterback, as we know. So are they for real? Well, their defense appears to be, but they gave up 14 points. They couldn't handle Fields running. What are you going to do against Lamar, right? So I don't know that they're good. I think they played 2 games. They got lucky against Buffalo. They couldn't guard Drake May rolling to his right, and then they did win at Tampa. It was banged up, but okay, I'll give them credit for going to Tampa. A lot of teams can't. So we will see there. But can they beat Philly? I don't think they can beat Philly. Can they beat the Rams? I doubt it. Well, I'm not sure they can beat Seattle unless, again, Darnold chokes in the big games. So we'll see. They're playing good, but you got to see who they're playing. Who have they beaten? All right, Buffalo. Well, wait a minute. Buffalo just lost to Miami. How good's Buffalo? Buffalo gets Tampa this week, so we'll see. Buffalo beat KC. That's a good win. They beat Tampa. That's a very good win. And New England beat Tampa. So we'll see. They're a good team. I'm not sold on Drake May yet. He's got to sell me. The only guy I was really sold on in the beginning was Joe Montana. But I saw what he did at Notre Dame. And he won the Cotton Bowl. They were down 20 points, fourth quarter, and he gives them 3 touchdowns. One at the end of the game. They won like 31-30. And I knew Joe Montana was going to be good. I didn't see that from Drake May. He didn't do anything in college. I'm surprised he even got drafted. I'm surprised he's even playing. He's not a good quarterback because he didn't do anything at North Carolina. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a fluke right now. I think Denver's better than them, but we'll see. I mean, all you can do is, I'm open-minded if they beat Buffalo again at home and play some other good game. I don't know who else, because they're playing the weakest division, the NFC South. So they beat Tampa. That's it. Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, they all suck. So that's not going to tell me anything. And like I say, if they play, are they going to play KC in Denver? I don't know. Even their own division, they get the Jets in Miami, who suck, and Buffalo. So there's 3, 5, 7 games are against nobodies. And then they probably had a Tennessee or a Carolina in there because they were a bad team last year. So they got a weak schedule. So we'll see. We'll see how good the defense is. And we'll see how Drake May is in party time. They got good coaching. Yes, he was good. He had Tennessee playing much better. I'm surprised Tennessee got rid of him. The notion that you need a good offensive coach to be your head coach because you drafted Cam Ward is the stupidest thing I ever heard. Just hire a quarterback coach for him, not a head coach. All right. So you can see what I'm doing here. That's how I'm establishing the team. So Texas Tech is an A team with a good defense, but UCF is not. UCF's liar, pants on fire. I got them as a 19, but wait, look at the last 2 games were 30. Baylor I get, but not Houston. And they gave up a 27 to Kansas and a 20 to Cincinnati. West Virginia doesn't count. They're a 13. They're not a good team. So that's what you expect. But in 3 of the games, there's 27 and higher. Texas Tech's gonna do that. So that's kind of, I almost need to, but there's so many teams. I have to go with so what I do is I pull the stats and I just put them in and I go, oh, okay. Yeah, UAB's an over team with the 37 defense. Are they really an over team with the 37? And that's what I'm digging in. So the games I kind of like, I then go through the 5 teams and I go, oh, and that's how I'm finding Coastal Carolinas, and that's how I'm finding, UCF, Texas Tech, Baylor. I know Marshall. How did I get Marshall as the free plays the same way? They're scoring a lot of points. Georgia State's Z team. We're laying 1. We did it last week with Coastal Carolina. So we're right back at it with Marshall. But again, I'm finding it on 5 because otherwise Marshall has a 33 defense, but they might not. Georgia State does have a 40 defense. So Marshall should score early and often. Colorado State, New Mexico. Is Colorado State really a W with the 28? Is New Mexico really an over with the 25? And probably not, depending on who they played the first week and the second week in the high school game. It's got to be different. And really, I'm looking in conference because now it's conference play. So there's almost 2 seasons in college. There's the first week you're playing, maybe a Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, then a high school team, and you haven't played yet, right? You're just your first couple of games. And then there's the conference schedule part of it. Now we're in conference. So we're playing similar teams, especially Sun Belt and MAC and that. And so now I can get a better flavor of in the conference, and I know what to do there. That's why I'm pretty good at picking the bowl games because I get the feel of the team in the conference, and especially the early ones, they're very easy for me. The problem with the later bowl games is the player doesn't play. It's 10 minutes before game time. I'm going to get ready for the NFL draft and not play. Well, we're expecting you to play. And you get fucked because he doesn't play. So that's what we're trying to avoid. And we will see. But, now Oklahoma plays Alabama, Iowa, USC. I really don't need to go into it. I watch those. Those are games you're familiar with, teams you're familiar with. I know USC beat Michigan, and I know they lost at Illinois, and so Nebraska game, and so you get a good feel. The Notre Dame game, who they are, can they win? That's the question you're asking: is can they win? All right, let's go. Let's take a look tonight. Clemson, Louisville 2.5, 51.5. Clemson, I don't know. We've seen enough of them. They're an E team with the 22 defense. Louisville is a team with the 21 defense. We know Louisville beat Miami. They're at home against Clemson. Clemson stinks this year. They're 4-5. They're not even 500. Louisville's got a chance to win the ACC because they beat Miami. And we'll see what happens. So I don't love it, and I don't love that it's a Friday night. So I don't know. Do I want really the key here is do I want Clemson as a dog? If I do, I'll take it. If I don't, I won't. I don't like Clemson as a dog. The next game, Oregon 24.5, 44.5. Minnesota an under team, 21 defense. Oregon an A with a 13 defense. We saw them against Iowa. We saw them against Indiana. We saw them against Penn State. We have a pretty good feel of who Oregon is. We don't really think the quarterback's all that. And where you really get skewed is when you watch them against Oregon State. Excuse me. You see them against Oregon State, and they beat them 62-0. You go, oh, Oregon's a good team. They score a lot. And then you watch them against Penn State, 17-17, go to overtime. You watch them against Indiana, they only scored 20. You watch them against Iowa, and it's 18-16. So they have a pretty good defense, but I don't think their offense is all that. And here you got Minnesota, and the total on this game is 44.5. And Minnesota's got a pretty good defense. So will it travel to Oregon? See, that's the problem. It's 9:00 Eastern time. So it goes till midnight. So Minnesota's, well, they're a central team. So it'll be 8:00 for them. Won't be too bad because they're a central team. Like it breaks off. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois are all central. Detroit and that are Eastern. Ohio's Eastern. Penn State's Eastern. So what I would think would be probably a lower scoring game. Minnesota with a killer defense. They beat Nebraska. Can they win? I don't know. Are they a live dog in this game? 30 points. That's a lot of points. You give a pretty good Minnesota team. They're 6-3. It's not like they're a Z team. I think this number is too high, actually. Now, do you want to bet Minnesota plus 30.5 against Oregon? That's the hard part. Yeah, I think it's too high. I won't bet Oregon, but really, Minnesota and 30 is probably a good play. But again, it's Friday night, and again, it's at Oregon, and you just all of a sudden they hit the switch and go on you. So it's not a real good game for me to bet on. UConn is doing well. Yep, I know. I mentioned them. Okay, now let's go to Saturday. Kansas State, Oak State. Kansas State 19.5, 50.5. This line's went down a lot. This 50, I think I have 53, 50.5. Kansas State's the Z team, or Oak State's the Z team. Kansas State is actually an over team. They score a lot. Notre Dame and Pitt. Notre Dame 12.5, 54.5. Down from 55.5. Pitt's going to give them a game. Pitt's a very good team. They're 7-2. They're ranked 22. I don't see Notre Dame 54-0 in this one. I think Pitt's very live here. Wisconsin, Indy. Indy didn't lose last week, but they really screwed up against a weak Penn State team. 29.5, 44.5. And this is the same thing. Wisconsin, good defense, no offense. Indy, I don't know. They did beat Oregon, but this is a big number, 30 against Wisconsin, who did beat Washington last week. They probably shot their load and they're all done. But it's a lot. It's a big number to give 30 points to Wisconsin with the good defense. They played Ohio State pretty close. They only lost by 20 to Ohio State. Air Force goes to UConn. There you go, David. UConn 7.5-point favorite, 63.5. I almost locked this game under because Air Force is playing Army-Navy football. So they're going to take the second quarter and run the ball 90-yard, 15-play, 10-minute drives, which is shortening the game, which is an under. And I got a feeling that's what they did to us with San Jose State last week, and I got a feeling that's what they're going to do to UConn. I would not bet this game over. I kind of like it under, but can I trust Air Force to do it? So here's where we go to let's look at the last 5. How can the Falcons beat the Huskies? Just run the ball down their throat like they did. Yeah, Fagnano is really good. He's got like 20 touchdowns and 1 pick or no picks. Sarza for the Air Force. See, it's misleading. Air Force 33 a game. UConn 36, but defensively, Air Force 33. Now let's take a look at the real numbers, the last 5. And let's look at them. Air Force 16 against an explosive San Jose State. 20 on Army, 21 on a kind of a weak scoring Wyoming, 51 to Vegas, and 34 to the Navy. And that's where you really get, wait a minute, they look like they're changing back to let's run the ball. So all of a sudden, the last 3 games, you're giving up 16, 18, let's say 18, and you scored 48 and 31. Now you're scoring 24. Okay, Wyoming's good defense. Army 17, and then 26 last week. They're not scoring 40, 50 points. They're running the ball more. So therefore, they're more like a 18 and more like what? 50, call it a 70, divide by 3 is 25, 24. So it's like a 24-18, not a 30. We're looking here at a 30. They're not a 33. They're an 18, and offensively, they're not a 33. So if you take the entire season, they're a 30-33. But if you look at the last 3 games, that's probably when they switched. I don't know if they switched quarterbacks or they just decided to run the ball more. So that's when you notice the change, and that's when you back off and you go, because I'm wondering how did San Jose State not put up 50 points? They've been putting up 50 points a game. That's why I bet the game over, and Air Force wasn't over, but the last 3 games they are not an over. I saw that and I kind of hesitated a little. And now UConn, good game with Duke, 37, UAB 38. Rice 34 but lost, 38 BC, 51 Florida International. This is good, but not in this game because you have Air Force who are turning into, I'm going to run the ball on 10-minute drives for 85 yards. I'm going to go on 4th and 1 and get it. And they are stealing possessions because if you go on a 12-minute drive, the Lions did this last week against Washington. It was an 8-minute drive, and then Washington would score, and then an 8-minute drive, and Washington didn't get enough possessions. Detroit couldn't stop Washington. Okay, so here, that's what Air Force is doing. San Jose State only got the ball a handful of times, and they threw a couple picks. It changed their game plan because they had to throw more because they're finally getting the ball. So UConn, the biggest game I'd say is Rice. They put up 34. BC's not that good. Florida International, okay. UAB, Duke's a very impressive 37-34. See, playing Duke, yes, you go over because they're explosive. But San Jose State is playing an Army-Navy style football now, so you have to recognize that. You're not going to look at 21, 26. Now, granted, Wyoming 21 was a big day for them, but 50 by Vegas makes okay. But if they played Vegas now, they would probably try to run the ball. The question is, can UConn stop the run and therefore make Air Force pass? If they can stop the run, it'll be high scoring. They gave up 37 to Rice, 34 to Duke, 19 to UAB. So I don't think they can. Their defense says, no, you can move on them. And that's the problem. David. Wow, 30 points is tough to bet. Yeah, they're going to run every down. Well, but they weren't in the initial run every down. And that's the problem. But what does running the ball every down do? Shortens the game. You eat up 40 seconds, or let's say 30 seconds of run. All of a sudden, you drive it down and you take 8 minutes off the clock. You got less possessions. You've got an under. And that's why I think the 63 is crazy. Now, I'm assuming that that's what Air Force is going to do because they did it, looks like, against Wyoming, Army, and I know they did it against San Jose State. You just saw these 12-play drives. Like, I'm wondering, where's all the San Jose State drives? And they just ate the clock. So you figure they're going to do that. And I don't see this. This is, I mean, you could make a case that this is a lock under 63, 69 and a half, 70 points. There's no way you're getting a 70-point game here. This is too high. This is where we attack AI. No, this is not my lock, but I'm making a case to lock it. This is an AI 63 and a half. They look at the whole season. So let's see how they arrived at it. As I showed you, Air Force averages 30 points and gives up 30 points. Well, look at their average. Bucknell, throw that game out. Utah State, 49-30. They're explosive. Boise puts up 49 on them, and they scored 37. Hawaii puts up 44 on them. And then Navy, 34. And that's where we're getting this 63 and a half. However, then you get into Air Force 17, San Jose State 16, Wyoming 21. You can see they changed. And that's what you pick up doing it this way. Otherwise, it gets blurred. Oh, yeah, the Air Force has where are they? Yeah, they got a 33 defense. They don't have a 30. They do have a 33 defense, but if they're going to run the ball for 12 minutes a period and, less drives for the other team, all of a sudden their defense is like a 25 or 22. And would you go over with the 22 defense? Hell no. So let's look at Connecticut, and we'll arrive at theirs. And so they beat a high school team 59-13. You got to throw that out. They lose to Syracuse 27-20. That's a Lowe's game. Delaware, who's a Division II, just turned Division I. That was a high-scoring game. Ball State, that was 56. They played Buffalo 20-17. They scored 51 on Florida International, 38 on BC. And then you got a 71 on with Rice, Rice is a pretty good defensive team. And then against UAB, they hold them to 19. And then last week's a 71. So there's very few 70-point games in here. Like, again, 38-19 to UAB, 37-34 to Rice, who's not a big game. So some of the games have gone, but the Buffalo game and the Ball State game didn't. So UConn has a good quarterback. And they see, but if they're playing a Duke, yeah, I expect it to go over. You need that offensive team to get the over. And you do not, I believe, have the offense or defensive team in this new Air Force the last 3 weeks. And if they keep running, which I would imagine they would, if they're winning with it, they won 2 out of 3 winning with running the ball down your throat. So that makes me think this is we're going to run it down your throat type of game. And I think 63.5 is way too high. This is not a team you're going to get a 70-point game on, right? No chance. The Raiders, well, they try, but Gentry runs into the middle of the line and he gets nothing. So they can't even do that right. And you got Brock Bowers. You don't really want to run into the line. I would just throw the Brock Bowers every play, like they do with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase gets 16 receptions in the game. That's what you got to do with Brock Bowers. Just run pick plays with Mike Meyer. Or give him the ball, let him run. He did that in Georgia. I remember he would do that behind the line. You know how the receiver runs behind, the quarterback hands it to him or pitches it to him. They did that at Georgia. He was pretty good at it. And the other play I'd like to see the Raiders run is this forward pitch. You know how the quarterback's got the ball and he's going to hand it off, and then the tight end or the running back runs in front of him, and then he pitches it in front, but everybody's kind of going this way, and then he just pitches the underneath pitch to, Brock or another running back, and he goes for 10 yards because everybody's flowing that way. I'd like to see him do that play. Take advantage of your plays. All right. So I got to think hard about Air Force UConn under. Will they do what we think they're going to do? And I can't imagine he's going to go back. I mean, he beat a good San Jose State is as good of offense as UConn. So, all right. Michigan Northwestern, Michigan 11.5, 41.5. Same game. Michigan a B team with the 17 defense, Northwestern and under with the 19. Michigan's really got a problem with quarterback, and their running back, Justin Haynes, is out. I think he broke his leg or something. So Northwestern plays a lot of under games and a 19 defense. So welcome to Wrigley Field. UTSA and Charlotte. UTSA 17.5. and 58.5. Charlotte, the Z team with the 38. Now, I know Charlotte's a Z team. My question is UTSA this year is not as explosive. But this is a game, it's a real hard call. UTSA is not scoring like they should. I have them as an over team, but that I'm sure the high school game's skewing it. There's a couple of games they scored like 20. And Charlotte is a Z team. So it's the type of thing, it's a high number, but on the other hand, they're playing Charlotte. So they'll probably kill them. But you only are laying 11.5 here. So this is probably doable against the Z team. TK, did the Jets cover? They landed right on the number. They were 13. So they lost by 13. So in a teaser, they covered. The over or the under covers in a teaser. And New England and the Jets. All you had to do was play a teaser yesterday and you won because they all 4 won. South Florida and the Navy, South Florida 10, 62.5. Down from 64.5. I wonder if the quarterback's playing. Let's see if we find out about the quarterback who faked the injury last week. Horvath, the quarterback, I don't know. See, now, for example, South Florida beat UTSA 55-23. That's why I'm leery to take UTSA against Charlotte. Now, South Florida beat Charlotte 54-26. North Texas, South Florida beat North Texas 63-36. That was the over. That was a 99. I think we had that one. They lost to Memphis 34-31 and then beat UTSA 55-23. So they play every game in the 40s and 50s, South Florida. Navy lost to North Texas 31-17 and Notre Dame 49-10, but the quarterback didn't play, and the quarterback probably got hurt in the North Texas game. So the question is, does he play? I don't know, South Florida, lane 10. I would say if the quarterback doesn't play, it's a good South Florida play because they're going to score 35, 40 points. And it might even be, the over-under is 62.5. This is another case where it's probably an under, but you can't play it under because South Florida can put up 50 on you, as Notre Dame did on Navy. South Florida is more explosive than Notre Dame. Arizona, Cincinnati 6, 56.5. Arizona an A team, Cincinnati an A team. Should be a good game. Fajita's good. Sorsby's good. South Carolina A&M. A&M 18.5, 49.5. Superficially, you like A&M. They got the quarterback. They got both have 22 defenses. South Carolina did play Alabama. They should have won the game. They had them. Alabama scored with 2 minutes left to tie the game, and then on a kind of a fluke, they recover a fumble. The guy's just trying to run, and he gets into the end zone. So they win by 7 in a game they had no business even winning. South Carolina, though, that's their only game. They've only won 3. They're not very good this year. Lenora Sellers is a big guy, and he's a good runner. He's not a good quarterback. And A&M can light it up. So you don't want to bet against A&M. Do you take A&M minus 12? Probably at home against South Carolina. But again, they did play Alabama close. So it's a little bit of a big number. It is a conference game. South Carolina does have a decent defense. They got a 22 defense. So it's a little bit high, but probably doable. But, can they stop Lenora Sellers from running is the question. Eastern Michigan, 2.5, 49.5. Ball State's the Z team here. Eastern's a W. 31 defense against the 27. So maybe you take Eastern going against the Z team. Arkansas, LSU, a very interesting game. LSU 5.5, 57.5. Up from, I don't know if it was up or down from 6, maybe. 5.5. Arkansas, the over team, 33 defense. Played A&M 44-41. Here they get LSU. Now, LSU, I don't know, did they switch quarterbacks? They did in the Alabama game. They brought in the backup, and he's a runner. Alabama got him to fumble twice because he's not used to fading back and having pressure. He's used to running. You should have an easier time with Arkansas. Their defense is pretty weak, 33. LSU just doesn't score enough. Arkansas with a weak defense. So I can see this game being close. I can see Arkansas with 12 covering. Again, they got a 33 defense. And LSU got a new coach. You know, the new coach looked terrible and a little lost, but they did play good defensively against Alabama. But Alabama had the lead, and they were kind of running the clock, and they won 20-9. They had a few turnovers. The quarterback fumbled. He went back to pass, and LSU defensive guy made a good swipe at it. So we'll see. But I think Arkansas here. I don't think LSU. I don't think you can get an over in the game. Maybe you can. It all depends on the flow of the game. But Arkansas is probably a live dog here. It's a tough one. Oregon State, Tulsa, who cares? Oregon State, 2.5, 49.5. 2 W teams. Oregon State's terrible this year, and they both have 30 defenses. I have no comment. Arizona State, 11.5, 47.5. Is Lovett out for the year? I think. I thought he hurt himself. One thing I heard I couldn't believe is Missouri's quarterback, who broke his ankle, is like doubtful for the game, but he's not ruled out. The guy broke his leg, like his ankle. What are you kidding me? You got him playing? I'm like, I don't think so. So I don't know if Levitt's playing or not. Let's see if we get anything. I don't know the injury Levitt had. I thought he was out for the year, but I might be wrong. This is why we check. No, he's out. Backup quarterback, Jeff Sims is the quarterback. So Arizona State's 11.5 with the backup quarterback, which I thought. West Virginia's 30 defense, playing a little bit better with their backup quarterback. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if West Virginia stays within it, but they're kind of a bad team. But Arizona, without Levitt, we don't know enough about the backup quarterback. North Texas, UAB, North Texas, they're both over teams. North Texas, 17.5, 69.5. When I really looked at this, North Texas scores 100 points. I mean, they score a ton, 24 defense. But UAB, I don't really see as an over team. They had a few games where they only scored 20, where North Texas is all 50s, right? So I decided it's not an over at 69. It's almost an under because UAB is not going to score that much. And North Texas does have a defense. So this is not an over game. And I'm not sure if UAB is an over team or they're not a W team because they score too much. But I don't know. I got to come up with a new category. They score a lot, but they give up a lot more. Your free play, Marshall, 7.5, 62.5. Take Marshall down to 1.5. Marshall with the 33 defense. Georgia State, our Z team with the 40 defense. Coastal Carolina lit them up for 40 last week, and I would think Marshall will do the same. They're a good over team, a good scoring team, 33 defense. But Georgia State just doesn't give you anything, and they have a shit defense. So They might play them competitively. I mean, last week was 40-27 to Coastal, but Marshall will score a ton, and I don't think Georgia State can keep up. And because they have a 40 defense, Marshall should score a lot. That's why it's your free pick. Do you like my exotic free picks I'm giving out? Anybody can give out. I was at Caesars and and it was Thanksgiving, and I said, "Well, I won with Alabama and Ohio State." He says, "Anybody can win with those." I says, "Well, how about you know, uh, how about San Jose State won?" It was after the games. I said, "Well, I won with San Jose State," and he shut up. So gives me anybody can win with Alabama. Oh, really? They cover every week. Really? I didn't know that. So it's just funny when people want to argue. They don't want to admit I'm good. So they're going, oh no. Anybody could pick, you know, Philadelphia to win or Kansas City to win. Anyway, Missouri State 5.5, 48.5 from 4.5. I got both teams under, both teams with the 25 defense, and I'm not playing the game at 48.5. Now, maybe I can find it, but I don't trust either team. They're really bad teams, and this is what I'm trying to avoid is the inconsistency. Oh, I like the game over, I like the game under, and then you don't know what you're getting. So I'm staying away. Colorado State, New Mexico, 14.5, 53.5. Colorado State, a W team, 28 defense. New Mexico and over with the 25. But you got 14.5. But Colorado State's pretty bad this year. South Alabama, Lou Monroe. Lou Monroe's a Z team. South Alabama, 4.5, 49.5. This is down from 51.5. South Alabama E, and Lou Monroe is your Z team. UCF, Texas Tech. Texas Tech's just so good. 23.5, 48.5. UCF's an E team, but here's where I also found a mistake. I had them as like a 19 defense. They were a 26 defense. So I think I showed you that. Texas Tech is a 12. So Texas Tech, the way they play, you don't want to bet against them, that's for sure. Oklahoma, Alabama 645.5. Oklahoma is a fraud. I changed them from a 14 to a 22. They gave up a lot of points to Texas, to Old Mississippi, and to Tennessee. Alabama really is just, and it's revenge for Alabama. Roll Tide, baby. Iowa, USC 6.5, 48.5. Here's where I really confused. Iowa B team, we saw them against Oregon last week. 13 defense, pretty real. So that's why I don't have to go through the numbers. I just look at the Oregon game. They held them to 18. USC an 18 with the 21 defense. Now I go to the USC Michigan game and they beat them like 37-21 at USC. And Iowa's a very similar team to Michigan. They're much better at home, where they lost to Oregon. They lost to Indiana. They've had a good schedule. Now they got to travel to SC. I think SC has some problems, but it's 6.5. You can go even, and I think USC is better at home. And I think if they get the lead, Iowa's going to have a hard time coming back. And Iowa, at USC after the plane is not going to be a 10 defense. USC will find a way to score, in the 20s, and I don't know if Iowa can keep up with them. And USC has a fairly good defense. So I kind of think USC, because it's at home and Iowa's got the flight, they win the game, but I wouldn't want to lay too many points here. Here, we got them even. So just win, baby. Al Davis. San Jose State, Nevada. San Jose State is up to 9.5, 49. We'll call it 9 because there's probably some 9s out there. and 49.5. San Jose State. Now, this week, they get Nevada, who's a Z team. Last week, they had Air Force, who decided to run the ball. Well, you're not going to get that with Nevada. Nevada has no offense. They don't even get two. They get like 2-something a game offensively. The quarterback stinks. San Jose State's explosive. They both have 30 defenses. So you can't really go over on the game. But I think San Jose State, being explosive against the Z team, probably should handle it. You got to lay 3, probably okay, because Nevada's nothing. I mean, they're not a good team. Penn State, Michigan State, Penn State 749.5. Was they playing games? Goes from 50 to 48.5 to 49.5. The Sharps. Penn State has lost 6 in a row. Michigan State played Michigan decently. They're at home. Again, if the game's at Penn State kills them. Again, the game's at Michigan State. Penn State, 7-point favorites. I'm not sure how. Michigan State with the weak defense, but they can score. And Penn State probably shot their load against Indiana. They got the backup quarterback, so now we've seen him. So I don't know. This probably is close game. Michigan State's probably really jacked for to win this game. NC State, Miami 55.5. Miami's lost 2 games, can't afford to lose. NC State scores a lot. They're a 30 defense. Miami with the 15 defense. Total of 55. Probably goes over. Georgia Tech, BC. My Georgia Tech, 16.5, 16.5. Boy, they keep adjusting these totals as if they know what the score is going to be. Georgia Tech is a B team with a 23 defense. Boston College, a W with the 34. I'd say Georgia Tech rolls. They roll Tide. Virginia Duke, I'm waiting on Virginia's quarterback. First I saw he's going to play, and now I'm seeing he's still questionable. He's in concussion protocol, I guess. Duke 4.5, 58.5. Duke very explosive, 29 defense. Virginia's an 18. Let's see if we got any news on them. And this morning I didn't see, but now it's 12 o'clock, so we'll see if we got anything. Virginia quarterback Chandler Morris in concussion protocol before Duke game. We know that. But what we don't know is he out of it. If he plays, then I definitely like Virginia as a dog. Virginia can win the ACC if they win this game. Quarterback is currently in concussion protocol and listed as questionable for Saturday's matchup. But again, I don't know when this is. So again, we've got a quarterback. Yeah, he was an Oklahoma quarterback. He went to TCU, North Texas. In North Texas, he was huge. If Morris is unable to play, sophomore Daniel Kalin, another portal acquisition from Nebraska, he is likely to start. So if he doesn't play, we take Dookie. And if he does play, we take Virginia. And this is the problem, right? You can't complete your bets. A lot of my bets are in, but then I have this one circled going, if the quarterback plays, I'm betting Virginia. But when do I find out? And I got Duke 4.5-point favorites. So if we see Duke go down to 2, then we bet him. If we see the spread go to 6, we know he's not playing. So really, that's how we find out. Good game here. Texas State, Southern Miss. Southern Miss 365.5. Texas State's an over team with the 34 defense. Southern Miss, we love them. The over team, good quarterback. The Marshall team, but they're a B team, but the total is 65. Can you go over? You really don't want to bet against Texas State. Like, I don't really want to bet Southern Miss plus 2.5 because I don't know that they can beat Texas State. Texas State could get hot. They can score. They haven't been scoring as much. Them and UTSA have been a little off this year. So I'm not sure what to do with this one. But Southern Miss should score on Texas State's weak defense. The question is, how much does Texas State score? App State, James Madison. James Madison, very good team. 8-1. App State 4-5. Madison 21-52.5. They're an A team with the 16 defense, and App State is an over team with the 27. Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky 13.5, 54.5. All these 2-point jumps in these totals. Middle Tennessee, the Z team, and 32 defense. Western Kentucky, a B team, and a 22 defense. Let's go into this game. I'm curious if I should take Western Kentucky. Just because I like betting against the Z teams, right? Well, Middle Tennessee's quarterback has 2,100 yards. How many interceptions I have, I don't know. They scored 20 a game, and Western Kentucky 30. They get 400 yards. Western Kentucky gets 333. Defensively, they give up 32, and Western Kentucky 22. So Western Kentucky should win this game. Plus, they're at home, and it's a Z team. Middle Tennessee's lost 5 in a row, probably all of them. They lost to Kennesaw State, Missouri State, Delaware, but those games were close. Jacksonville State close, and then Florida International killed them. They score about 20 a game. Western Kentucky beats Missouri State, beat Delaware, close, lost to Florida International, beats Tech 28-27, and New Mexico State 35-16. And that's what's got me is they are winning Delaware, Missouri State, Tech by 1 or 2 points. Finally, against New Mexico State, they got the win, but then when they play Florida International, they lose. So, I don't know. I got a bunch of close games here. So it's a weird Z team if they're losing these close games. And then they give up 56 to Florida International. Oh, the solar review of the place I used to live with and my brother's 10 years ago is done. Upgrade your home with nothing out of pocket. Yeah. Now, I don't know if these are AI issues or they're scams where they're trying to get me to tell my numbers. Here's my phone number. Here's my credit card to pay for it and all that shit. I don't know which it is yet. Maybe I should respond just to play it out, knowing it's a scam. But it's even when I lived there, I didn't own it. I just lived there. My brother owned it. It was right after my divorce. So it's 2010, 2011. So it's only 14 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, you live there. You wanted your shower, your roof. I mean, it's such bullshit. All right. Maryland goes to Illinois. Illinois 15.5, 51.5. This is up from 14 to 15.5. And 51.5 down from 53. Maryland, pretty good quarterback. An E team, 23 defense. Illinois is an over team, good quarterback. Altmaier, 25 defense, which is probably getting better. Again, they lost that close game to USC. or they won at 33-31. 15. Maryland's not bad, so I'm not sure what to do with that one. Florida Atlantic goes to Tulane. Tulane's a pretty good team, 17.5, 62.5. Florida Atlantic is an over team, 34 defense. Tulane an over with the 26. 63, that could be. Let's take a look at this game. Florida Atlantic could be missing its quarterback. Beltkamp left the Tulsa game with a right shoulder injury. Has been limited in practice. Okay, so we have is the quarterback playing. They both score roughly 30 and both give up roughly 30. So the potential is there if the quarterback's there. And even without the quarterback, they beat Florida Atlantic 140-21. So Florida Atlantic scores 27, 53, 13 on South Florida, 32 on the Navy, 40 on Tulsa. So Navy gives up points. I might have to rethink this South Florida game, even if I get the quarterback. They give up 26. On the other hand, they give up 21 to Rice, then 33, 48, 42, 21. So Florida Atlantic is definitely an over team. The one game against that, but against Tulane. Now, here's where the problem is. Tulane, a 14, a 19, and a 17. They beat East Carolina 26-19 is a big win. And then UTSA, they lost 48-26, and then they beat Memphis. So it shows you UTSA can play. Where's UTSA? Yeah, they're playing Charlotte Lane 17. So when I saw that, it makes me think, yeah, maybe I should play UTSA. So I'm getting all these, reading this, I get all kinds of plays that UTSA, they're playing a Z team, lay the 11. San Jose State's playing the Z team. I only got to lay 3 there. Western Kentucky's laying 7.5 to Middle Tennessee. So if you're into playing against the Z teams, you got at least 3 good ones to play. And then in the Oklahoma game, they're really not a 14 defense. They're a 22. And we see the 3 games they gave up a lot of points on. So against Michigan, they didn't have a quarterback, but against teams with good quarterbacks, Tennessee and Ole Miss, they gave up in the 30s. And Alabama's got a good quarterback. So that's what we see. So Tulane, a good team. Must have been a matchup problem with UTSA, but beating East Carolina, who's a really good team, 26-19, and beating Memphis. So Tulane, what's this Tulane spread? 17, but Florida Atlantic, all right, they give up a lot of points, but they light you up pretty good too. A 40, a 32, a 53, a 27. Yeah, this is I wouldn't want to bet against Tulane. Maybe an over, but then you're waiting for the quarterback, right? Okay. Speaking of East Carolina, Memphis, East Carolina 3, 58.5, up from 2, 3. Both are A teams. Memphis, 21 defense, East Car 17. We had East Car against Charlotte last week, lane 22. They won by 28. Again, betting against the Z team. It's these middle conference. This is the AAC conference and the Sun Belt, and that's where we're finding our locks and our big plays. And they're winning. So they're all over the place. That's why I like these. I like the Sun Belt. The MAC I don't like. The MAC's kind of weird this year. There's nobody's scoring, but in the AAC, the Texas States, the UTSAs, and the Sun Belt, I got Coastal Carolina and a whole bunch of others. I mean, it's these are the best games to bet here. So I don't know. This should be, it's a tough game. How much do we like Memphis? Maybe you take Memphis as a dog. They're 8-2. I mean, they're a good team. New Mexico State, Tennessee. What can I say? Tennessee's laying 40. Total is 60. I don't know why the total is 60. New Mexico State is a W team with a 25 defense. They're not going to give you any points. So it's all if Tennessee scores 60, they go over, but then they're going to win laying 39. So it's a big number. North Carolina, Wake Forest, Wake 6 and 38.5. North Carolina doesn't score. Wake doesn't score. Neither doesn't score. Wake beat Virginia because the quarterback got hurt. So I think two strong defenses, but it's a low total, 38.5. Liberty, Florida International. I don't know. I was looking at a few Florida International scores as I was looking at the other teams, and it really stuck out at me. Liberty 2.5, 51.5. Liberty's an under team with a 22. I think Florida National is a live dog here. The way they beat some of these teams. Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, my Coastal Carolina. Georgia Southern 3.5, 59.5. And my first thought is take Coastal Carolina at 9.5. And then the overs available. They're both over teams, 28 defense, 34 defense. And as we've seen, Coastal Carolina is much better scoring the last 5 or 6 weeks than we come up on the charts. So, and the total is 59. So very doable. Utah, Baylor, Utah 8.5, 60.5. I stumbled onto this game. Utah an 18, 14 defense, but I don't know that it's 14, and Baylor and over with the 29. So I found a play looking at the numbers. But if we look at Utah, the last 5, are they a 14? 14 to West Virginia, 10 to Arizona State, 24, 7 to Colorado, 14 to Cincy. So they are, but what I'm noticing is they're scoring 48, 42, 53, 45, Utah. Only BYU was 21, 24, which is a 45. But when I look at Baylor, they give up 27, 34, 42, 41, and then 3 last week to UCF. But they score 45, 35, 36, 20, and a 30. So Baylor's going to score now. They played a 41-20 with Cincinnati, 42-36 with TCU and Kansas State. Pretty good teams. And Utah, scored a lot, 53 on Colorado, the 24-21 game with BYU. So Baylor at home, will they score? Their worst has been 20 against Cincinnati. So we'll see. I think Utah's a good play at 7.5. And then the total, and it's confusing because Utah is a pretty strong defense, but Baylor scores a lot and has kind of a weak defense. So I think somebody goes off here. I think Utah goes off and scores a lot. But I think Baylor can score too, and it's 59. So I don't know. I think there's 2 ways to play that, but Baylor over usually money, although they won 30-3 last week because UCF didn't play. All right, Florida and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 11.5, 53.5. Florida an under team with the 22 defense, kind of a weak quarterback. Ole Miss an 18 with the 19. They should pound them. Ole Miss 8-9-1 cannot afford to lose here, and they are at home. And Florida somehow beat Texas. Played Georgia pretty good last week, 24-21. So I'm a little, if you can play Georgia pretty good, I'm a little bit leery to lay 5.5 to them with Ole Miss, but they should take it. Purdue goes to Washington. Washington off the loss to Wisconsin. They'll be pissed off. Purdue, okay, but they played Ohio State. They're going to be flat. Washington 16.5, 51.5. Washington an A team with the 20 defense, and Purdue an E team with the 27. So Purdue has to fly. Washington off of a loss, so it looks like a Washington play. Utah State goes to Vegas. Vegas 667.5. This is over team playing over team, both with 30 defenses. Problem is the total. Wow, the total dropped. It was 71, is now gone down to 67. Can somebody explain what's going on with these totals going 3-4 points down? I didn't like it at 71. I'm getting more interested at 67. Was there an injury? But the total, the line didn't change. It was 5.5, went to 6. Be ready for shootout at Utah State. Utah State's got a good quarterback, Barnes, who was at Utah, and their quarterback, Calandria, 2,200 yards. These teams, the worst Vegas has done is scored 31 twice, 51, 35, 42. And they give up a ton of points. And Utah State, 14 on New Mexico, but then a 26 at Hawaii, a 30, a 35, and then 51 against the weak Nevada team. But I don't see an injury. So why is there weather? Maybe this game's at Vegas, so I think they play indoors, don't they? So can't imagine there's weather problems. Delaware, Sam Houston. Delaware 10, 56.5. I thought about playing Delaware, but I didn't like it. Delaware's an over team with the 31. Sam Houston, the Z with the 38. But Sam Houston, the last few games have played decently. So I'm going to leave this alone. I thought this was, let's play Delaware against the Z team, which still might be good. Texas, Georgia. Georgia 6.5, 49.5. I'm seeing Texas gave up a lot of points to Ole Miss and to Tennessee. And Georgia gave up a ton of points to Tennessee and Ole Miss also. Texas Vanderbilt was a 60-point game. So I'm not buying Texas with a 16 defense. I think it's in the 20s. And so is Georgia. They're not a 19. See, that's the problem. You take the whole year, and Texas with the week against Ohio State was 14-7, who didn't have a good offense at the time. And so therefore it's showing less. They beat Oklahoma 23-6. Quarterback was hurt. But then the Vanderbilt game and the Ole Miss game and the Tennessee game, I think it was Tennessee. No, there was another Arkansas, Texas. Oh, it was Old Mississippi State. So they gave up 21 to Florida, they gave up 29 to Florida, 23 to Oklahoma, 38 to Mississippi State, and 31 to Vanderbilt. So they're not if you look at that, they're not a 16 defense. Giving up 31, 38, and 29. So I'm not buying it. Yeah, Oklahoma 6, Kentucky 13. What else is new with Kentucky doesn't score? But 3 times they gave up 30. So how can we call them a 16 defense? And then Georgia gives up 35 to Ole Miss, a 21 to Old Mississippi State with the backup. And Tennessee, they gave up 42 or 40. So when you look at those games against good offenses, and I think Arch Manning's starting to play better. They're starting to score. So I'm not buying Texas with the 16 defense. All right, UCLA, Ohio State. Ohio State 31.5, 47.5. Again, it's way too high, 31.5 against UCLA with the new offensive coordinator. I got them as an over team. I got a 30 defense, but they're scoring more. Now, the Indiana game, they didn't score at all. They did put up 42 on Penn State. They're not going to put up 42 against Ohio State. And again, they're letting the teams playing Ohio State are letting them throw the big pass. I don't think UCLA will let them do that. So Ohio State's an A team with the 7 defense. And so I don't know how you lay 30 to 25 points to UCLA, who found an offense, who beat Maryland, beat Penn State, beat Michigan State, and then they ran into Indiana. And then last week, Nebraska 28-21. But I don't see them scoring 21 on Ohio State. So you play the 7 in my mind, in my world. Just like Georgia with the 7 defense. We locked them under every week. Every week they won. And here, Ohio State scores a little more than Georgia did, but still, I think we're like 7-1 with Ohio State unders. Florida State 14, 55.5. I don't know how they're 14 over anybody. Virginia Tech's pretty bad, but Florida State, they're not good. Mississippi State, Missouri is 7 and 51.5, and I really don't know how Missouri's 7. I think Shapen is questionable. Let's see if we got news on him. So the Virginia quarterback and this quarterback is what I'm waiting on to see what I do. Now, how can Bo Pribia, the Missouri quarterback, not officially out? Well, he's listed as doubtful, so he's not. He broke his ankle or separated, whatever. He can't play. He's in a walking boot. Why would they play him? And if he does play, he's not going to be he'll be shut up. So we don't know what's going on with Blake Shapen. He plays, then I make the bet. He doesn't play, I don't know. The backup played decently, but Mississippi State scoring with Shapen. I need him to play. Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State. I really don't know. Kennesaw State is 355.5. They're an E team with a 21 defense. Jacksonville State over 26. I'm not even going to talk about it. Washington State 7.5, 43.5 to L Tech. L Tech's a B team. They're not bad, 19 defense. Washington State an under with the 23. No comment. TCU, BYU, a good game. BYU 3.5, 50.5. TCU, a B team, and BYU, we saw how good they are. They're an A team, 18 defense. Boise, San Diego State. San Diego State 2.5, 41.5. They're actually an A team, San Diego State. However, they got killed by Hawaii last week. Boise, a B team, 24. They've been getting beat pretty good. So I don't know if San Diego's real or not. And our last game is Fresno State, 3.5, 40.5 to Wyoming. Again, this total jump from 38 to 40. Well, Wyoming an under team, 20 defense. Fresno State an E with 21. I have no comment on that. And Old D, 133-0. So I want to get into. There's Mark McGuire today, where I'm just going to play a section or two. And then there's one on Vegas, which is a very good description of what happened. So your free play here, Marshall -1 to Georgia State, the Z team. Marshall pretty good. And Baltimore is the free game against Cleveland in the pros. Baltimore 7 lay 1. Cleveland, Baltimore, Lamar's playing. They have to win. It's do or die. Cleveland, Dylan Gabriel. I don't see them. Baltimore's starting to roll. They beat Minnesota last week, so I think they'll be okay. Nothing you can do. Buffalo, Miami, and that. I don't even think Washington this week. I think that'll be a struggle. So we will see. All right, real quick on Mark McGuire. $8,000 gold price he's calling for. I still think that's conservative, but that's who knows what time frame. It's 25,000 when it gets there. Like today, I'm again looking at it's because of the interest, not having an interest rate cut, which I guess triggered inflation. And without it, you're not going to buy gold. I mean, these are idiots that are making these moves. I don't buy any of it. Inflation's printing the money. They printed the money to death. It's worthless. Everybody's buying gold. This is paper gold, so keep that in mind. All right, little Mark McGuire.
In fact, which has been pretty much upgraded to around, if there are any more pullbacks. And back over to the spot chart here, which is reflecting the real price. Essentially, with specs flushed into very tight supply, liquidity providers estimate silver will regain and blow through its all-time highs, which were here in October, well before the end of the year. And in fact, we're looking at potentially a lot quicker. On aggregate, first quarter of 2026 estimates a minimum of $80. And it seems like a stretch, much like when we looked at the beginning of the year, and we're talking about the 50s being overtaken very quickly. This is coiling to happen. In fact, it's more likely $140 per ounce before enough offers to sell to meet demand. Now, while this COMEX December contract to spot backwardations are somewhat normalizing, it's not because the LPMCL stocks have rebuilt. It's because the silver cartel is having to bend the knee to the SGEI global-facing price-setting hub. And that is determining a daily supply-demand bid and offer price for immediately deliverable bullion, not a paper-settled price, which this futures contract still indicates. So if I hop over to the spot chart at this point, you can see that this price is actually still up. The spot price is still above the futures price. Now, Beijing's official export controls announced last week were quickly responded to by the US, who also announced similar retaliatory measures. Now, this has caught out the LPMCL holding the bag on some $4 billion of underwater SLV short positions. In other words, the ETF silver that is held in the SLV exchange. The silver's not there anymore, anywhere close to current prices to repay these naked short bets. So at best estimate, net of their hedges and short covering footprints into the manufactured spec margin call at $54, and it was $54.38 in spot and $53.765 in futures. At best estimate, these stops, or the sweet spot, I would not call it a sweet spot in this case, but their balance point would be around about on aggregate, and if you net out the margin calls, the bets against silver likely aggregate really at this $45 futures level. Now that is some $10 per ounce. At $50 a contract, that's $10 an ounce below liquidity providers' year-end $55 estimate. In fact, which has been pretty much upgraded to around 58 now, but just even assuming 55, this level here, that is still $10 offside per contract. We're talking about a $4 billion net short position. Now, the point we're trying to draw attention to here is these deeply underwater short bets have to be bought back, exacerbated by an institutional side SLV backdoor drain. So other than what can be drained out of the COMEX backdoor, Where else are you going to get any silver into tight supply? And the answer is a real seller in the SGEI hub, physical hub.
That's Shanghai
as
Gold.
As a result, leasing silver from SLV, etc., to sell into the market to cap prices is drying up. In fact, with Local London largely pushing on a string to short cover and underpriced. SLV is actually being cashed in to meet significantly higher SGEI determined physical delivery benchmarks. These bets will have to be.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
What are you doing?
Class.
Oh, can you come get me after and then we can get some lunch because I don't have right home. I missed the clinic.
Yeah, I come get you. Give me about another 20 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Will have to be short covered at a big loss. Now, while these SLV out.
So what he's saying is, in order, when you do these options and somebody asks for delivery, you have to give them the physical silver or gold, which they don't have, which is going to mean they have to buy it because they have to deliver it. And when they have to deliver it, you're looking at a much stronger gold and silver price because they'll have to go into the market. They have to buy physical. See, right now, all the paper's diluted. There's a million ounces, but they don't exist. But if I ask for physical, I need the physical. You don't have it. And if you don't have it, you got to buy it. And you got to buy it at a much higher price because nobody wants to sell it at these ridiculously low prices. Like I said, I went into my gold store years ago, and the guy says, I need eagles. I'll give you $2,000 for it. At the time, the price was about $2,000. I says, add a zero to it. I'll sell it to you for 20 grand, but I'm not selling it to you at 2 grand. That's ridiculous. Now it's at 4, and I still have the eagles. So anyway, that's another reason this price is going to. So don't really be discouraged when you see this bullshit COMEX like what's happening today. Oh, they're not going to lower interest rates, so let's sell gold. It's such a joke. And the reason it's different is we got BRICS behind it. We got Russia, 20,000 tons. China, 80,000 tons, India and Dubai and Saudi Arabia and Brazil and South Africa. All the BRICS countries are buying it. So the demand's there, which is forcing the price up. So just realize that's what's happening. All right. So just ignore the paper price. We only check it to see what we can buy it at right now because the idiots are so stupid. They sell the price. They sell it at COMEX instead of the physical price. But China is coming up with physical prices, the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So when he says SGE, Shanghai Gold Exchange, he says IS. I think it's an International Shanghai Gold Exchange or something like that.
Flows are being spun as bearish. These outflows represent underpriced silver being drained to meet these very supply shortfalls. This is a slippery slope that leads to large gaps higher in silver. And to answer a whole bunch of more.
So there you go. Silver will be zooming. When I say 100, I'm being conservative. Because once it's broken 50, so it should be good. They're fighting to keep it at 50 for whatever reason, I don't know. But once it hits 60, 70, it goes to 100, it goes to 500, it goes to 1,000. And again, people are brainwashed into thinking these option prices of 50 aren't real, right? Oh, it's 50. Well, okay, that's not real. So once you see that, then you realize what's going on, that the $50 price was a paper price. And people have a hard time understanding that. They don't understand $50 is a paper price. They think it's a physical price, so it's not. All right, Oh, we're in silver. Okay. So let's take a look at long-term gold demand overtakes tight supply. All right, let's look at this one.
Out, and that was the speculative, the non-sticky CTAs, the speculators getting flushed out of the gold.
I asked the question to him in his notes. I said, what's a speculator? Are they not JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley and Wells Fargo and the bullion banks? Or are these, who are these guys? I think the Fed or whatever. So I'll see if he answers it. I doubt it.
ETFs and good riddance. Very sticky institutional ETF demand is also returning, forcing GLD short covering. Now, just to understand what was being attempted by the cartel, was a second weekly close. Now, we had a weekly close below the prior week's week. Then last week, this was they attempted one more time to get a second weekly close lower, and they failed. And they failed because everyone at $4,000 were a buyer. So following 3 weeks of pretty much sideways action, officially capped footprints, all official capping efforts to close gold below 4,000 into that weekly close failed, and it's backfired, serving to coil gold for a larger rebound from deeply oversold conditions here. And what it's done is, as we drew this in last time, this has established the next in a higher series of footprints, physically supported footprints. Real money has only just commenced seeking exposure to gold. This fresh demand alone is anticipated to drive a physical end of year price to 4,500 at a minimum. So direct liquidity provider feedback has consistently evident central banks, sovereigns, and institutional buyers. I mean, coming in, the clue, and if you're looking at, obviously a lot of people are looking at the clues. The first clue was that Goldman and UBS were also reported to be actively taking the long side of the ETF outflows. And spec short sellers that were selling at 4,000, they were taking 1-to-1, taking every single thing that was on offer. In fact, Bloomberg's feedback also attests that the widening range of bullion banks, in this case, we suddenly saw a recently bearish Toronto Dominion, who were traditionally fairly short skewed. They were also talking about higher gold prices, and they were assessing that it was the ETF seller exhaustion that took gold below 4,000, and they're openly saying, well, looks like that's exhausted. And that is being replaced by real money, which they are exposed to too. And they're not stupid. They're exposed to real money saying, where can we get gold? They're a bullion bank. Of course they're going to provide it. And now they want to be on the long side of this. This is being, so real money is replacing the weak hands. It's seeking exposure to gold from almost a zero level. Aggregate estimates still jive, if not far exceed, our 1st of January estimate, fourth quarter price, 4,500 target. So Shane, this short-term action really leads us into the unfactored, slowly emerging, bullish for silver and gold, much, much bigger picture, which is so important to look at. Great, the short-term action. Yep, we're stacking. Great. But it's what's driving all of this. Now, this Bloomberg piece reveals that Cambodia became the first global central bank to begin storing some of its gold reserves inside the international-facing Shanghai Gold Exchange, the SGEI that we talk about. That's the Shenzhen's bonded vaulting network, basically. And it illustrates that it will also accommodate trade and storage of silver and other critical minerals and rare earths. Obviously, there's going to be a suite of them, and they'll be on site. And this unassailable mandate to back the yuan with gold stretched all the way back to 2010. I know we've looked at it before, but people are not, they forget this has been in process, much like a lot of the Chinese initiatives. They are decades, centuries in play. And in this case, goes all the way back before 2010, but officially in 2010, after China opened up and encouraged citizens to invest in gold. Then more recently, they've been opening up access for smaller investors able to buy and save in gold with a click of a mouse. At every gold monetizing de-dollarization stage along the way, citizens were told, this is so important, that the RMB priced investments that face them would appreciate based solely on a rising gold price. That has massive implications, especially if you're in control of all the physical reserves. Not only does this utilize gold as the perfect wealth preservation hedge into the world's largest saving rate of 43% of disposable income, people don't get that. The PBOC also steps in to take advantage of concurrent Western-induced synthetic market volatility. Beijing has smoothed out Western-diluted price volatility by way of onshore CNY price management. So if you're exposed to gold and a currency that's exchangeable to gold, 1-to-1, then you're not exposed to this massive dollar volatility. And as physical market liquidity flows into China's physically settled onshore exchanges, the resulting supply-demand price exposes these deeply divergent, synthetically capped LBMA CME dilated prices as physically underpriced. It becomes clear. At times, we've evidenced the paper to physical differential at around up to 100. Sometimes it's been over $100 an ounce between the price in dollars versus the price in China, into which the PBOC has consistently arbitraged this underpriced bullion, draining it into their state-held coffers. It's a win-win situation, and it's decades in the making. We've got clear evidence that COMEX backdoor EFP supply. In other words, we've already talked about where do you get gold out of the COMEX? It's a warrant. It's until you EFP. That's the Achilles heel we've always talked about. If they didn't have that EFP in place, the whole thing would implode because you need a relationship to the big LBMA marketplace. And so what they do is they simply EFP underpriced benchmarked gold at the related diluted local London fixes. And what that's done is resulted in unreported monetary gold being drained without substantially raising the prices. That's only just beginning to be, in fact, even the World Gold Council is only just catching up with the fact that way more gold has been bought by central banks than is officially stated. And as we now know, or as we know, Western officially sanctioned gold price management involves creating and dumping tons of unbacked dollar price gold inside this CME LBMA ring fence. So to take advantage of these physically underpriced global fixes, Beijing has systematically sold dollar strength against foreign exchange gold to de-dollarize at an optimum level without even notably affecting the dollar price. Now, over time, it's had an effect, but it flies under the radar on intraday. Now, even the bullion banks are doing it. What they're seeing is that the dollar used to be correlated 1-to-1 with gold inversely. So you've still got the automated guys that see the dollar rise, they come in and automatically sell. Not so. The bullion banks and their clients are saying dollar strength equals sell dollar to buy gold. This is a huge disconnect, not realized by so many, and again, clueless mainstream media. So this over-the-counter foreign exchange management serves really two PBOC objectives, really, mandates, really. So it smooths out the citizens' CNY facing price, maintaining Beijing's citizen gold price appreciation promise. But that process has also enabled the PBOC to drain Western gold to the tune of some 80,000 physical tons. We've talked about this before. There is tons of evidence to suggest that that is the real number. And that's why they're taking their gloves off. They don't have to hide anything anymore. A rising gold price enables Beijing to challenge Trump and the dollar. And it's a primary reason gold's share of global reserves on a balance sheet has significantly surpassed US treasuries. And even though that's reported by the World Gold Council, it's significantly higher than they report because of monetary gold.
So what's happening is, as these idiots start dumping the price down on COMEX, China's buying it all. So that's why we have no fear. China is doing the buying, putting the price up. They want a higher price. And the U.S. wants a lower gold price, I assume, to keep China's 80,000 tons in check. But they can't control it because COMEX needs physical, or COMEX is a game played without physical, like Madoff. But if they don't have physical and people ask for delivery, the game's over, and that's what's happening. All right, I want to show you one more thing before we end for today. Is going to be this thing on Vegas. There's this one thing I'm watching I haven't got yet, how one snitch destroyed. This is the mafia, this guy. This is back in the late 60s, I guess, but we'll get to that tomorrow. GM's collapsing. What else is new? Because of the electric vehicles. These idiots got into that. Nobody wanted it. That says law. You don't build something nobody wants. You build things that people want, because people make the money, are going to buy your products. But if you make products nobody wants, nobody's going to buy it. It's simple, says law. It's amazing how the Keynesians are so fucking stupid, and all the problems we have with the banking system, with gold, with GM, with these electric vehicles. If you had Austrian economics, none of them would ever happen. It's just the Keynesians are a bunch of idiots. All right. Caesar's empire crumbled. The house finally lost. I'm going to play about 5-6 minutes of this. It explains everything, and then I can teach it.
Honestly, I tried the new bearskin hoodie, and here's the truth.
Nobody cares.
Okay, first things first.
We don't care.
All that financial. There was a time when Caesar's Palace was the place that made you feel like royalty.
This will
when Harrah's actually
make
cared
you
about
understand
regular
everything
players,
about Vegas.
Those days are gone. Today, we're exposing how one of Vegas's biggest names is drowning under billions in debt, paying hundreds of millions in rent for buildings it used to own, and squeezing every last penny from the loyalists who built this empire. This is financial engineering gone horribly wrong. Here's something that'll make your blood boil. Caesars Entertainment pays over $1 billion every year just to rent properties it used to own outright. Let that sink in. They're tenants in their own casinos. This nightmare started back in 2015 when Caesars filed for bankruptcy. The company was drowning in debt. We're talking about the kind of leveraged buyout disaster that happens when private equity firms get too greedy. In 2006, Apollo Global Management and TPG Capital took Caesars private in a massive $27.8 billion deal, loading the company with debt right before the 2008 financial crisis hit. When the house of cards collapsed, Caesars needed a way out. The solution? A financial engineering trick called a sale-leaseback. In October 2017, as part of the bankruptcy reorganization, Caesars spun off a new company called VYCI Properties, a real estate investment trust. VICI took ownership of the actual buildings, the land, the physical assets. Caesars kept the operations but had to start paying rent. Initially, VYCI started with 19 casinos and racetracks leased to Caesars at a total annual rent of $630 million. But here's where it gets worse. Over the years, VICI kept buying more Caesars properties. In December 2017, they acquired Harrah's Las Vegas for $1.1 billion, adding $87.4 million in annual rent. Then came the Octavius Tower at Caesars Palace for another $35 million per year. Harrah's Philadelphia, Harrah's Atlantic City, Harrah's Laughlin, Harrah's New Orleans, the list goes on. Today, between VICI Properties and another real estate investment trust called Gaming and Leisure Properties, Caesars pays well over $1 billion annually just to occupy buildings that once belonged to them. Every single month, before they can pay employees, before they can renovate rooms, before they can offer you decent comps, they have to write massive checks to their landlords. But the rent is just the beginning.
So just quickly, this is the problem with the U.S. government, right? Before they can pay Medicare, Social Security, the government employees, they have to pay $1 trillion in interest on the $38 trillion debt. And that's what Caesars is doing. They have to pay all this money to the rent. They don't have money to fix it up. And apparently, as we watched, I think yesterday, the day before, Caesars is in need of $500 million in renovation. If you stay there, the rooms suck. It's a dump. You're better off at a Motel 6 than at Caesars. So these are the problems. And when you get into high debt and you're paying all your money on interest, your business is fucked. They're basically bankrupt. They're basically gone. The CITI will go bankrupt because they won't get the rent payment. Once there's nobody coming. So instead of what Caesars did wrong was instead of raising prices to try to pay the rent, they should have lowered the prices to get more people in to spend more money. You want $5 blackjack, not 50, because you're not going to get anybody to play. They're missing the other part of the equation. What is the market for blackjack? $5. Well, we'll charge 50. There's nobody home. Nobody's going to play blackjack for $50. They want to pay it $5. Well, we'll add for the parking. Well, there is no market for parking. Nobody will pay it. Well, we'll charge 40. We'll charge resort fees. There's no, we'll pay $70 for the room. Well, we'll make it 200. There's no market there. So this is their problem. And this, and the same thing with the government. They got to pay the interest on the debt of $1 trillion, which is probably going up. The inflation of money printing will make the interest rates go up because the dollar's worth nothing. And so gold and silver saves your life. Most people seem to get it, except for that one guy in our class who's, I got to pay tax on it. Now, I showed you that tax thing yesterday. You don't have to pay tax on it. If it's an eagle, you're not going to get 1099. If you're not going to get 1099, you don't pay tax. You pay tax when you get 1099, and that's fine. But if you don't get 1099 because it's eagles and there's no 1099 for it, there's no tax. So again, people, before you sit there and listen to Andy Scheckman or whoever the fuck you're listening to, make sure you clear it with me and understand what you're doing, because you're wrong. Okay. All right.
As of the second quarter of 2025, Caesars Entertainment is carrying $12.3 billion in total debt. Billion. With a B. Think about what that means. In the last reporting quarter, Caesars paid approximately $579 million in interest expenses alone. That's over $500 million every 3 months that goes straight to creditors instead of improving your casino experience or giving you better odds at the tables. When interest rates were near zero during the years following 2008, this debt was somewhat manageable. But starting in 2022, when federal authorities began raising rates to combat inflation, everything changed. Caesars' cost of borrowing skyrocketed. Their weighted average cost of debt is now approximately 6.35%. And with $12.3 billion in principal, you do the math. They're hemorrhaging cash on interest payments. Here's the vicious cycle.
But let's look at it. With inflation, you must raise interest rates because nobody wants your dollar because it's not worth anything. So you have to give people who want the dollar, you got to give them 10, 15, 20%. So you got to raise interest rates. So, Trump wants the rates lowered to keep the interest rate on the 38 trillion down. But with inflation, Caesars is going to be 20, 25% on their thing. They're broke. They're going to go bankrupt again. And the city, I would not keep anything in the city If you have a trust or real estate trust with Citi or whatever this VIDI is, get it out because you're going to get attacked on Wall Street. That's what happened to Attack on Wall Street. Nobody would pay the mortgage, so they deleted the real estate trust that the Attack on Wall Street guy had, and he lost his 60 grand. Well, if you're in these real estate trusts with this VIDI, you're fucked. So get out of it. But you shouldn't even be in that. You should be in gold and silver. That's the key. If you're in gold and silver, you don't have to worry about any of this shit. You don't have to worry about interest rates. You don't have to worry about it going to zero. You don't have to worry about anything. If you want to fuck with these guys and play in the stock market and play in these real estate trusts, you're going to lose. You will go to zero. The market started to crumble. The stock market lost 800 or 900 yesterday. It's losing some more. I see Bitcoin's down to 95,000. Oh, I thought it's going to 200,000 or it's going to 1 million. No, it's coming down. You know why? Because people need money. So people sell the assets that they have. And if a lot of suckers are in Bitcoin, this way, they're selling it. And there's a lot of selling out of that. There's a lot of selling out of the market. And that's going to continue. But the only thing you're not going to have is gold because nobody's selling gold. Oh, there'll be a time when you're out of stocks and you're out of Bitcoin that you'll start selling gold. But we don't price gold in physical buy and sell. We price it in options and derivatives based on JP Morgan. Okay, a little bit more of this.
Trapped in. To service this debt, they need to generate more cash. To generate more cash, they cut costs and raise prices on customers. But when they cut costs and raise prices, they drive away the very customers who generate the revenue they need.
Bingo.
It's a death spiral that's been playing out in slow motion. This is where
just lower your prices. Lower your prices, get a lot of people in, and you'll make money. Right? Selling an ice cream cone. Well, we need to increase. Okay, let's lower the price on the ice cream cone, get more customers in, and we'll make money on the extra customers. That's how you make the money back. That's how you're profitable and everything. But if you raise the price and have no customers, guess what? You're broke.
It's home for every Vegas regular.
I'm having so much fun.
So my husband just got this tactical hiking stick, and he wants to show you, so you better be nice.
We don't care. Shut the fuck up.
Death spiral that's been playing out in slow motion. This is where it hits home for every Vegas regular. All that financial pressure, it's landing directly on your shoulders. Let's start with resort fees. At Caesars Palace, you're now paying $50 plus tax per night just for the privilege of using Wi-Fi and the fitness center. At Flamingo, Harrah's, Paris, Las Vegas, and the Ling Q, it's $45 plus tax. These fees have exploded over the past decade. In 2010, most properties didn't even charge them. In 2015, they were maybe $20 to $25. Now they're approaching the cost of the room itself in some cases. For a typical 5-night stay at Caesars Palace, that's $250 in resort fees alone, plus tax, bringing it closer to $280 to $300.
Why are they taxing
that doesn't
resort
include the room
fees?
rate, parking, food, or gambling. Just the mandatory fee for things that used to be free. Then there's parking. Remember when parking was always free on the Strip? Those days are long gone. Caesars properties now charge for both self-parking and valet, unless you've got elite status in their rewards program. And table minimums? Don't even get me started. At Caesars Palace, good luck finding a blackjack table under $25 during normal hours, and it's often $50 or $100 on weekends. Craps tables are running $25 to $50 minimums on the Strip, with some properties pushing it to $100 during busy times. Compare that to 15 or 20 years ago when you could sit down at a $5 table any time of day. But here's the real betrayal. And any old school Vegas player knows this one. They've quietly moved most low minimum blackjack tables to 6 to 5 payouts instead of the traditional 3 to 2. For those who don't play, here's what that means. When you get a natural blackjack, you used to win $15 on a $10 bet. Now you only win $12. The house edge jumps dramatically, meaning you lose money faster. They're not even giving you a fair game anymore. Let's talk about how Caesars got into this mess, because it's a story every Vegas loyalist should understand. The sale-leaseback model with real estate investment trusts was supposed to be smart financial engineering. On paper, it works like this. The casino operator sells its real estate assets to a real estate investment trust, gets a big pile of cash to pay down debt, and then leases the properties back under long-term agreements. The real estate investment trust gets steady rental income. The casino operator gets flexibility and capital to work with. But here's what they don't tell you. These leases are ironclad. They typically run 15 to 30 years with automatic rent escalations built in, often 1.5% per year or more. Whether business is good or bad, whether there's a recession or a boom, Caesars still owes that rent every single month. During the health crisis shutdowns in 2020, casinos were completely closed for months. Guests weren't coming through the door. No gambling revenue, no hotel revenue, nothing. But guess what? Caesars still owed VICI properties their rent. VICI did provide some temporary relief, but the rent obligations continued. Gaming industry analysts have been sounding the alarm about this model for years. Back in 2016, Fitch ratings analyst Alex Bumajny warned that casinos are not well suited to be real estate investment trust tenants, saying that many proposed operating companies will have little margin for error after all of their fixed costs are accounted for. He was right. Think of it this way. In the old days, if Caesars had a bad quarter, they could cut costs, delay renovations, tighten belts wherever needed. Now, even in a bad quarter, that billion plus in annual rent is due. It's an inflexible fixed cost that has to be paid before anything else. This is why you're seeing deferred maintenance, dated rooms, and fewer perks for players. Walk into the Flamingo today, and you'll see what financial pressure looks like in physical form. While some rooms got a $90 million renovation back in 2017 to 2018, many others are showing their age. Dated carpets, old furniture, bathrooms that haven't been updated in years. This isn't the Flamingo that Bugsy Siegel would recognize, and not in a good way.
Ben
At Harrah's
Siegel.
Las Vegas, they did a $200 million renovation that was completed in 2020. But if you venture into the older sections, you'll notice the difference immediately. The company has been picking and choosing which areas get attention based on what will generate the most immediate.
All right, I got to go. You can see the crap going on there. So things are aging. You don't even want to stay there, but they're pricing out their customers. What the fuck are they doing? Who's the idiot in charge of this? So you can see why they did it, because they owed debt and they went to the real estate trust as a way to maybe get out of debt, but it backfired. 2020 comes in with COVID and you get screwed. 2008 killed them also. That was the first part of the need for the real estate trust. And then COVID hits in 2020 and they're totally fucked and they're not prepared for that. And the last thing you do is close. And the last thing you do is raise your prices and keep people out. So how are they going to pay rent when nobody's going? Oh, they'll win it on the app. Yeah, like everybody's going to play Caesar's app and play blackjack and craps at home. Yeah, no, I don't think so. You want to go to Vegas. You don't want to sit in your living room and play blackjack or craps. No, it's not going to happen. Betting the football, there's options to do, but you know, how much money are they making on that? But still, I'm not on the Caesars app to bet football. I got my bookie to bet football with. So, I don't know what they're doing, but keeping people out is not a real good idea. You want people to come in and buy the ice cream. You don't want to raise the price of the ice cream so nobody comes in and buys it. Again, Austrian economics kills these idiots. So with that, that's about it. Free play, Baltimore over the Cleveland Brownies. And we've got Marshall -1 to the Z team, Georgia State. They are scoring a lot. Georgia State gives up 40 a game. Sounds good. A lot of good plays. A 30-unit lock going Saturday, Sunday. And we got another pro lock. And I have another college lock that I'm waiting on quarterbacks, if they're playing or not, and or I have another option, I think. So I posted a lot. I have more to post. So if you bought, keep looking, keep going back. So should have a huge weekend. I love it. And now that I've got enough data, I can look at the last 5-6 games and I can project what. No, they're a high scoring team. No, they're really not a high scoring team. And then you don't get fooled. You won't get fooled again, as the Who say. So that's where I'm at. So please have a good day. I got to go get Alyssa, figure out what we're doing for lunch, and I'll be back tomorrow between 10 and noon. I can go a little bit more with like the Vegas and the Mark McGuire go through. Mark McGuire, again, COMEX has collapsed. China's pricing everything. They're buying off of COMEX, and COMEX, the ETFs, do not be in an ETF. Please only buy physical gold and silver. And again, if you buy Eagles and you're in America, you do not pay tax on it. They are not collectibles. They are money. And you're not going to get, if you do sell, you're not going to get a 10, you're going to not get a 1099. However, I do not recommend selling. If you own 100 ounces, we'll just put it there. Nice round number. Maybe you sell an ounce or two, but you're not selling a lot. You never want to sell a lot because gold's going to go to 50,000 an ounce. Why would you sell it at 4? Now, if you need the money, sell an ounce or two, you get 4,100 for it. But if you're really, I did not buy an ounce of gold to sell. That's not why you buy it. You buy it so you don't lose. If you have $200,000 in dollars, you're going to lose 200,000. So you put it into gold. That's the whole point. Were you going to sell your dollars? No, you're going to keep that. So anyway, let's take a look at gold and silver, see if it's trading or what's going on with it. Mysterious how it's going sideways. And it is. Okay, this is a issue. Still going sideways. And oh geez, look, silver's doing the same. What's going on? It was Veterans Day the other day. This is close. They might revalue it over the weekend, and we might come back with $100 silver and $10,000 gold. That might be what we wake up to Monday. I don't know. I'll try to dig into what's going on, why this is not, why this is going across. But it's, I don't know, 4073 is a joke. It's 10,000 if it's anything. All right, I'm off, and you have a good day. www.teaserking.com. If you want to buy the rest of my year, it's a $500 discount. It costs you $500. You get everything through the Super Bowl, college, and pro. Otherwise, it's $100 for the week. You can buy the locks. Again, a 30-unit lock with a 21-unit lock, and there'll be a third lock. I pretty much guarantee that. Anyway, good luck. A lot of strong plays this week. Play a big 10-team teaser. You got more than 10 teams to pick. All right. And again, everything I tell you when I go through the games is not a pick. It's my opinion on the game, but they're not all picks. Some I like more than others, and some I'm waiting on injuries for. So anyway, www.teaserking.com. All right. Have a good day.